Hi, it's James here at the Sprinkle Donut Forge in Moscow, Texas. And it's a nice day. Got some fall weather here. It's in the 60s. Feels great out here in the smithy. I'm going to show you how to make a thing that I've made 5 of these. And if you want to be good at something, don't make 5. Make 100 of them. Make quite a few. Make enough to where the repetition will train your hands and muscle memory to make it consistent. But it's a little belt buckle. See, there's a seam right here. It doesn't matter, it will perform its function as a buckle. You see you have a little punch spot for the little tong to fit in, and you've got this. So a very basic belt buckle. I made one for my own belt. It works great. So we're going to start with this. We got 6 inches of 5/16 inch mild steel rod. You can use stainless steel, you can use whatever material you're comfortable with working with. I just elected to use 6 inches of it. It's cut nice and flat. And for the little tong, I got some old bed springs. Yeah, I don't throw anything away, I'm a scrapsmith. So it's good spring steel, it really is. And it's as hard as nails. Well, harder than that, it's harder than woodpecker lips, you want to get down to it. So this is going to be our little tong. Well, the first thing we got to do is we got to bend this thing into a horseshoe shape and kind of get the spacing wide enough to get belt leather in this area. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to heat this up, bend it into a U, and then we'll go from there. See you in a minute. Alright, we're going to take it out of the fire and bend it all the way over. Grab it like that, and then just bend it on over and get the ends as even as you can. Alright, you gotta start there. Let's try to send it on down until you get your desired gap. Now, work over the horn of the anvil or any object that you can use to perform the same function. Kind of straighten the little ends out. Try to keep it flat. If you have a flatter, use it. Flatter will flatten things up in a hurry. A flatter is an object with a large flat surface that you put on something and strike it. There you go. Ooh. Electric shock. Must have built up some friction. Anyway, you got your hoop there. Next thing we're going to do is heat it up and kind of flatten this out, but we don't want to flatten these ends because they're going to be bent to touch each other at 90-degree angles. So we need to flatten out from about here on out. You don't have to, but I just like the way that looks a little bit better, and it's easier to punch your little divot for the tong. So let's do that. See you in a minute. Alright, let's flatten that area out. Keep everything as straight as you can. Okay, it's got a flat surface on both sides of the hoop itself. It's looking pretty good. So next, before I do anything else to it, I'm going to heat it up and punch the little tong divot. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch punch, which I have made. And it's actually it's about a 3/16 punch, which is ideal for this application. So let's heat it up and do that. See you in a minute. Alright, aim for the center of the curvature. Put your chisel almost full face your punch rather. Okay, you've punched a little bit. Go a little bit more. And then straighten the step in that little divot. Be gentle, you can always move it more, but you can't unmove it as easily. That'll do. Now you've created that little impression for the tong to sit in. Next step, we're going to turn this thing around. We're going to heat up the tips and try to bend those in by whatever method is most convenient. You bend them in about half of the distance it is between the two forks. That way when they meet, it'll be semi in the middle. It's not super crucial to be perfectly centered because that's going to be covered with leather, and it only has to do the job of a belt buckle. We're going to heat these little forks up, and we're going to bend them inward. Start the bend over a round surface or a square surface that you can hang it over. Even if you just lock a piece of steel in the vise, if your vise is strong enough to hold from beating, then you can begin that. But we're going to do it on the horn of the anvil because it's here, it's convenient, it's what I got. We're going to get them kind of started in towards each other. A little bit more than half the distance between the forks by eye, because the bend itself is going to take up some of that distance just to make the curve. So let's heat these ends up and try to bend them in, and our goal is to make them touch and have a flat bar facing this way. See you in a minute. Alright, let's get that over here. Work them together. The tongs are slipping. Use whatever you got to grab onto it, whether it's vice grips, proper tongs, or whatever. See, we got them moving towards each other. Don't push your heat. What we're going to do now is we're going to heat those back up. I'm going to try to isolate the heat to these ends, and I'm going to put it in the vise. Lock it in good, and try to tow these ends to touch and flatten the situation. See you in a minute. Okay, I've locked the bottom in there just long enough to grab a hold of it differently. Put a good squeeze on it. Take a hammer. All right. See what you got there? That's how that works. We'll go to the anvil, refine it a little bit, and then we'll work on the tong. See you in a minute. All right. Make sure everything's nice and flat. Nope, if you go too far, you can go over the horn and kind of hit the seam and beat them back parallel. Alright, well that's good. It's good for that. Let's quench it off so we can file it and get that deburred and sort of round to where the tang will move on it. There we go. A little bit off. Being it's mild still, you got a lot of freedoms. You can beat it around cold. So I'll put it over the horn. Make mild adjustments. Now the rest of that's going to have to be filed off. So I'm going to lock it in the vise. I'm going to rub the file here, here, and all the way around and get that kind of cleaned up. See you in a minute. Now this is going to take a minute, so I'm not going to bore you with it, but you see what I'm doing, smoothing it out. See you in a minute. They're all smoothed out. I think the tong will move well on that. So this part's done. Now we have to make the tong. Get our piece of bed spring, get it in the fire, get it hot, and we'll see you in a minute. Now remember, this is spring steel. You don't want to get it too hot. You want to take about 1 1/8 inches and flatten it. Don't flatten it too much. Just make it fat. And work on the sides. Get them nice and unlumpy, for lack of a better term. Planish it well because it's a moving part. Planishing is working at lower heats to smooth out the high spots and bumps and get everything kind of slick. In essence, you're using your hammer as a finishing tool. That's why I like having these small ball peen hammers. Little machinist hammers, they're super accurate. They deliver a smooth result. And I'm sorry for those of you that say you need a bigger hammer. If you want to know if you need a bigger hammer, and you're used to choking up on them like this, run it out to the end of the handle. If you can't control it in that position, the hammer is too big. Go down one. Anyway, here's what we got. I don't know how well you can see that, so I'm going to just kind of rotate it. See? Got plenty flattened out. I'm going to show you the jig I'm going to use. It's made from the same type of stock, the same diameter as the buckle. It's just a little bent U. You can make this very easily. Try not to distort the roundness of it when you bend it over. Keep it nice and hot. You lock that in your vise and you've got you a little bending fork. We're going to do that next. See you in a minute. Alright, the steel's fixing to come out. I won't have very much time because the piece is small and the weather's cool, so here we go. Bend that around as much as possible. Pull it out a little bit and take you a small Fits right on there. Comes off comfortably. You know how to move on that side stock very well. That's all you got to do. Now we need to heat this up and cut it off. See you in a minute. Now let me demonstrate this tool I'm going to use. I've cut that into butchering dies. This is a 4140 die. The bottom part sits in there. This part raises up and down. It'll create a bevel cut on this side, a flat cut on this side. You can set these dies up however you want. This is available from Uncle Buck's Forge. Look him up if you wish to purchase this tool and or the dies that you can get or die blanks to fit it. So I'm going to put the flat side towards you, and I'm going to cut this off with the part I'm keeping on the flat side, so the cut is flat and not beveled where I have to grind it. So I've got the spring ready. I'm going to cut it extra long, longer than I need for the buckle. You can tap and turn. There it goes. Nice cut. Very little burr, if you'll look. And that's easily filed off. That's pretty flat. Okay. Next step, I'm going to file that off and off camera, and we'll get this thing installed in the buckle. See you in a minute. Alright, it's just like spreading a split chain link in a lamp. You don't spread it out this way, you walk it this way. So I'll show you. Then of course you want the barrel facing, here's where the little indentation is. So you want to slip it over there like that. Then you want to close it up. Same way you opened it. Show a little finesse when you're doing this and try to get it lined up perfectly. Okay. Release. Now flip that tong over. Now don't cut it off yet. It's too long, but it's that way for a reason. Don't cut it off yet. You're going to take it to the anvil and you're going to shape it. You're going to shape it in the shackle by denting this part down and that part up. And then you'll see how much you need to cut off, because moving this down is going to reduce that length. So if you cut it that length now to fit perfectly in that little slot, when you hammer this down to create the indentation, it'll be too short. So that's why I insist on making these longer. So let's go to the anvil and do that. Okay. Now you don't want to mess up your little roll here. So you leave it off the edge of the anvil. Kind of hold everything stationary and gently tap this down. You notice it sticks up. That's okay. And if it gets a little bit crooked, you can unfold it. Hit it sideways. It's okay to do it as cold work at this point. So now we'll try to lean that over. So even though it's spring steel, it's going to be malleable at this point. So now you got to get you a piece of chalk and kind of mark your spot. So I got some here. Let's mark the spot. Get you some bolt cutters or nippers, chop it off. Make sure your mark is on point. Alright. Now you see that it's a little bit long. That's what we want because we got this cut edge. So we're going to take this little tip we got here, just put it right on the edge of the anvil. Hope you can see this. And flatten it up just a little bit. And look at how it fits. Okay. Maybe a little bit more. Okay. Let it overlap, because you have to file or grind some of that off. To the 1x30 grinder. See you in a minute. Alright, here we go. Knock the corners off. Check your fit. Doesn't quite go in there comfortably. If that gets warm, go ahead and cool it off. It gets warm rather quickly. We need to shorten it. Good. Round the sharps off. And we're done. Let's talk about it. Alright, here's our finished little buckle. And it's pretty easy to install it on a belt. If the belt is like sewn into a loop, you can remove the old buckle by tearing it apart. And you can move the tang of this aside, the tong, and you can walk these apart like I showed you and slip the leather onto it and then walk it back together. Just make sure that you get that little tong where it needs to be. It's a very simple belt buckle, very sturdy. Here's my personal belt that I wear to work every day when I'm setting tile. It's got the same type of buckle. This one's a little bit shallower. I wish in hindsight that I had made it a little bit lengthier like this one, because it's kind of tight quarters, but it works fine. There's as many ways to make this buckle as there are stars in the sky. So it's all up to your patience and what you want to do with it. And being that all it has to do is buckle a belt, this mild steel is strong enough to where I don't think you're going to move it with a leather belt. I'll just be honest with you. There's a lot of ways to make buckles, but this is a neat little way to do it. And as long as you file that seam and make sure that it has something nice to roll on, you're good. Well, that's all I got for this evening. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making this little buckle. I hope it enlightens you, and perhaps this is a small item you can make if you're a blacksmith to sell or gift to your friends. Well, that's all I got for this evening. Till next time, bye.